guys, Anne-Marie here. Today I'm back with another junk journaling process video. For this one, I jumped in completely blind. I just needed to get some stuff off my chest, but I had low creative energy and no plan, so I just worked with stuff that was out on my desk for the most part. So let's jump in and see what happens. And just like last time, the techniques that I use will be listed in the description box below with timestamps if you just want to jump around. First, I selected where I wanted to journal today, and I chose the first double-page spread, which is the green ledger paper. Like I said, I did not have a plan, so I was just pulling from, the little debris piles that build up around your creative space, if you're like me, at least. I was just using whatever I could find. So I had some vintage paper ephemera that I had not processed into my storage yet, and I also had these circles left over from a teacher's appreciation project from back in May. Yes, May. They've been on my desk since then. So I used these tickets, this cool Antidote chart, and that red polka dot circle. It just really worked, especially the Antidote chart, really worked with the stuff that I was thinking and feeling this day. So it was, I don't know, it's like artistic kismet, serendipity. I just love it when stuff like that happens. So I laid down the tickets to make kind of a drop banner on the left, and then I tucked one of those circles behind and stapled it on. There is a flap there, so the back side of the staple won't show on the front of the journal, but the back of the circle will, since it's sticking up, but I will address that later. Next, I cut up little bits from the Antidote chart to make that subtitle. The Antidote chart, by the way, was really cool. It was from the 60s, and it was just very interesting to read the different solutions for different things. It was in like a booklet from an insurance company about common injuries around the home and basic first aid, and it was just fascinating. Once I got those bits down from just the surrounding detritus on my desk, I decided I wanted to look for some stamps that might go along with what I was doing. So I pulled out some different Ali Edwards stamps and some possible texture stamps like the diagonal and the grid. However, since I did kind of already have a grid in the background with that ledger paper, I decided to spatter some mist first for a little more organic texture. And I didn't realize I was doing this, but I had subconsciously made a diagonal to lead the eye from the upper left to the bottom right. And then when I did the sprays, I did them in the opposite way, which is not typically how I would operate. But it was fine. It's just an art journal. There's no rules. I really liked this stamp that says we're in this together, because we are in this together, but it's still a very overwhelming, messy thing that we are in. So I stamped it over and over and over again and overlapped because it's an intense thing. And so I decided that this kind of represented that. We're still here supporting each other, but it's messy. Then I added some texture and color to the background with that diagonal stamp. I am very much a by-the-books, rules-bound scrapbooker sometimes, and I learned to use my cling-mounted stamps with an acrylic block. And so when I first saw somebody ink up a cling-mounted stamp and just press it on the paper, I was like, what the heck? What are you doing? It's not going to stamp all the way. It's going to be this imperfect. Oh, I get it. So I figured it out. I wanted to try that, and I loved the raw effect that it gives. It was perfect for this spread. It makes it seem more vintagey as well, because it's worn out and distressed, even if the original stamped image is not. I also pulled out that little tray that you see there that's just full of little bits and bobs that have built up over time. I'll just throw extra little random leftovers in there for use during times like this. So extra sentiments or cut aparts, I didn't use all of it, or leftover flowers from ephemera packs like this. Or if I just don't want to clean up, honestly, I'll just throw stuff in there. All right, so now it's time to add my journaling, and this is again one of those times where I'm gonna just get it out of me and onto the page. I don't want to read it later. I don't want other people to read it. So I'm gonna write my stuff and then I immediately wrote over it. So it's a slightly different technique than I did last time. I filled up those corners and then decided I really wanted some sun rays. So I drew lines to space that out. And then I went back to add journaling around those lines all the way to the edge of the spread. And on this one, it was more like what I did in the last video, where I just kind of randomly wrote a bit here, wrote a bit over here, went back over here. But I did specifically write over everything that I wrote. So there is at least 2 layers of text everywhere, if not more. I felt like the red polka dot circle needed a little bit more presence because otherwise it was at the same exact kind of level as that white flower across the way, and it felt like they were competing for my eye. And I want the eye to start in the upper left. So it's where I kind of kept going back to and building up, and it needed a little more oomph. So I ended up with this black doily, and it was perfect because folded in half, it was visible from the front, but still neutral enough that it's going to work with whatever I do on the front. And then it gave some great texture and a stark color that can really draw the eye when the people first look at the spread. Now it's time to add some sparkle and some physical textures. I had a bunch of these bingo markers. I ended up using I-19 because this spread is about stuff that was going on November 19th. And since I'm already using the lumpy bingo marker, I decided to go whole hog and pull out my chunky gems. I'm not always comfortable using lumpy stuff, because in scrapbook albums, lumpy stuff can leave dents in the photos and on cards. You'd have to package it appropriately and pay extra postage. But this is a junk journal, so there's no rules again. So I gave myself permission to use the chunkiest gems. I thought I'd use one of those pearl clusters finally, but it just didn't do it for me. It was like too many pearls. It looked like, okay, this is kind of gross, but it looked kind of like a pearly fungus or something. I don't know. I didn't like it. I did not like it. I tried to cut it down because I thought, oh, if I can get like a fun shape or a swirl or flourish with the pearls, that would be fine. But I didn't like what was happening there either, so I just switched over to using the big pearls. I layered in some flat dewdrops, and that still wasn't enough bling for me, so then I added these little adhesive gold sequins. For the final touch, I wanted a little more color, a little more texture to fill up the sun rays. I just masked with Post-its, and they did not stick great to the gessoed background. I have actual masking paper that would probably do better, so I'm going to have to try that next time. I grabbed a random flower stamp that was out, and I inked it up with colors that built off of the yellow-orange flowers, but it was kind of barely visible. I chose light colors of ink, so that's on me. The only thing that I might tweak if I were redoing is maybe I would have painted like some big gold, yellow, glittery washes of watercolor on those sunburst open areas. But all in all, I'm very happy with how this turned out. I love the interplay of the journaling and the gems. I always love flowers. I always love ledgers. I always love vintage papery things. So I just enjoyed it. And it really scratched the itch that needed scratching that particular day. So here are some close-ups. And thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a like, and I'll be back with more of these. Next up, I'm going to be working on my Christmas cards for the year. Then I've also been doing some fussy cutting shorts, so those will be up throughout the month. And all right, I'll see you next week. In the meantime, I hope you have a scrappy, happy week. Bye.